But thank you all for joining us today. Let me introduce to you our panelists, and then I will get to them one by one with a short introduction. So, and I am going to be reading this because I want to make sure I get it right. So our first panelist today is Monica Thompson. Monica serves as the Executive Director of our Career Services at the University of Houston. She has over 20 years experience and provides strategic vision to a team of 25 professional staff members and student assistants on our campus. And they work with over 45,000, hopefully over 46,000 students in the next semester at the University of Houston. And she's done a phenomenal job transforming our career services and bringing them into the 21st century at the University of Houston. Megan Toller is with us. She's a certified HR professional and a consultant at HRMP, one of our alumni-owned businesses in the Kruger 100, a leading outsourcing company based in Houston. She's a member of the team there in the HR team and consults with corporate clients daily and providing them with guidance on a wide variety of HR issues, including the impacts of COVID-19. She also enjoys the space of recruiting. So Morgan's going to focus on some recruiting questions and how they're seeing recruiting now in this COVID era. And our final panelist today, Keith Wolfe, is the Managing Director of Murray Resources. Murray Resources is owned by our alumna, Marcia Murray, class of 78, and is also a member of the Kruger 100. Keith is part of Murray Resources, which is a national recruiting and staffing firm headquartered here in Houston. He's the Managing Director and leads the company's strategy, marketing, and sales efforts. And so I want to thank all three of our panelists today, Keith and Morgan and Monica, and welcome them. And we'll take them off of mute, but we'll start with Monica. Monica, the University of Houston, obviously, right, 46,000 students plus, broken down into 32,000 undergraduates and about 10,000, 12,000, something like that, graduate students. And then, of course, you have your doctoral students and certificate students. But just give us a little sense of what the Career Services program at the University of Houston is all about and how it helps not only current students, but actually also alumni as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So our program is about career development and really being a career campus focused campus from the freshman year and not so much of, like I heard you mention bringing them into the 21st century, but not waiting to graduation to look for a job. So we want them to have those internships early on and more than one so that they really have identified where they want to work industry-wise and they perfected their interviewing skills. And before they get to that point, we're really helping them prepare their professional documents, interviews, connecting with companies, how to research companies, how to build their network. So that's really the work that we're doing with our students. And then there's a lot of strategic outreach, reaching out to alumni and hopefully having them champion job opportunities, internships, and full-time, but connecting those employers to the powerhouse of talent that we have here at the university. It can be hard to navigate recruiting, at a large campus like this. So we're really here to help them facilitate, even if that means special populations. We're here to help those employers connect with the students.
Monica, how have you seen the university's talent pool change over the time that you've been at the university? Like the specialties in the colleges and how technology has helped really what you're trying to do on a daily basis?
Well, technology has always been kind of something that is needed in this industry as far as recruiting. And I've seen a mix of like different applicant tracking systems, but how we help students prepare. We have a lot of online databases and platforms to help students get a more professional resume. So we have an online resource called VMOC, and basically students can upload their resume and it will scan it. So that's going to be a quicker time frame and gives them that feedback to update their resume that's applicable to certain jobs that are really hone in on their competencies and their skills. And that's what that's what employers are looking for, to see how the students are articulating those skills in the resume. So because we have a lot of students that may still commute to campus, it's really essential we have those virtual online resources so that they can get the help and not have to always rely. And it's great that we've had those since we have COVID. We've expanded those resources. So we didn't have to turn our operation too quickly because we were already reaching out to our high commuter population of students. And as far as the skill set, I mean, once we see that they've done the internships, we're helping them articulate those skills on their resume and giving them that confidence to go out and apply for those jobs.
Fantastic. Thank you, Monica. We'll come right back to you in just a couple minutes. I want to go to Morgan. Morgan, first off, congratulations on being, I guess, one of our newly minted alums, right? You are class of 2000, did you tell me 17? 2016. So you're at HRMP, and which is owned by one of our alums as well. How did you want to get into the HR business? Did you study that all the way through, and how did you end up in the spot where you are now?
Yeah, so I graduated from the business school from Bauer, and I was a management major. And so at that point, I was kind of like, okay, well, management's very general. And, through my career counselor and, navigating my electives and everything like that, I fell upon the HR track, the human resources track that is available in the business school through that specific major. And at that point, that's when I kind of decided I was going to kind of go the HR management route. And so I did that. All of my electives were kind of focused towards HR, and I've been working in HR ever since I graduated.
Wow. And so at HRMP, tell us a bit about your role, so our guests today will understand what angle you're coming from.
Sure. So my technical title is Client HR Business Partner. Really, that's just another way of calling me an HR consultant. So essentially, we have 400, 500 clients, and they call me when they have an HR issue. So that can be anything. Obviously, these days, most of those issues being related to COVID-19 in terms of, the impact on their workplace, overall. Unfortunately, a lot of those have been, reduction, in force. But, I have seen a number of issues come up. But in general, I am just a point of contact for our clients, just to talk through any and all HR issues that may come up as an employer, as a business owner. And that's what I do.
Thank you so much, Morgan. We'll come back to you in just a moment. And I want to bring in our third panelist today, Keith Wolfe from Murray Resources. First, Keith, make sure you're not on mute. We should turn this into a game. You should get a prize. We've all been on these Zooms where you start. But thanks for joining us on behalf of Marcia and Murray Resources. And you're in the global space, right? We have the on-campus space and we have the HR space. You're in the who's hiring and who's not and what they're looking for space. So give us a sense of what your day looks like and what angle you're going to be coming from today.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. So our firm, Murray Resources, we have 3 different divisions. So we have professional recruiting, we've got technical recruiting, and we've got light industrial recruiting. And then we also have a sister company, Resume Spice, which works on resumes and LinkedIn profiles and cover letters, everything that somebody needs to prepare them for the job search. So we work with about 100 candidates a month just on the Resume Spice side. But on the Murray side, we work with those in those 3 divisions. It's been a difficult few months, in this industry. It really has. Probably I've been in it for almost a decade, and it's without a doubt the most challenging time that I've been through. First week in April, we had virtually no jobs to work on. It just stopped. So the good news is it's picked up since then, but we're only at about 50 to 60% of where we were pre-COVID. But yeah, we work on everything within those 3 areas: professional, technical, light industrial. Most folks we work with have experience because that's who our clients are asking us for. They're typically looking for someone with very targeted experience, something that they can bring to the table and hit the ground running. So we do from time to time work with new grads, but mostly someone at least a couple of years out of school on the Murray Resources side.
Wonderful, thanks. And so we have some questions we'd like to get from all of you. And as I mentioned to those of you who came on at the beginning, we want to make sure you put those questions in the chat. I have some questions that I'm going to ask our panelists, but this will always obviously go better when you put your questions, your specific questions in the chat. I'm going to come back to Monica for a second. Monica, we talked about the student space, but I think a lot of alums at the University of Houston forget how many services you offer to alumni. And what services you do offer to graduates of the University of Houston. I don't think people recall that that's available to them.
That's right. I was just remembering that I didn't actually
Okay.
answer your question. Sorry about
No,
that. Well, we
you're fine.
do offer services to our alumni. So let's say you graduated in May. You would have access to our service for 6 months after graduation. And let's say you want our services additional 6 months. So there is a small subscription fee for that. And so we call those our alumni subscribers. And right now we have about 400 alumni subscribers that we are helping. Most of them actually do have jobs, and we do have quite a few that have reached out to us since COVID and the oil and gas prices have dropped. So we do work with, and we start to communicate this to our May graduates early on, and we are in touch with them before their subscription or their grace period ends so that they know that we're still here to help them. And helping them means they have one-on-one appointments so they can get advice on professional documents, and they also have access to Kruger Pathway, which all jobs are posted. And also they have access to career fairs. In this case, in the fall, there will be virtual career fairs.
Wow. And with 185,000 alumni living in Houston, that's a pretty substantial number and a resource for them that I don't think is utilized nearly enough, to be honest with you. If you have 400, you should have so many more alumni participating in that. We hopefully today's webinar, not only the live version, but the recorded version, we'll crank that up. What is the, I'll ask you again, Monica, really quickly, but what is the number one kind of reservation that students have where you've heard going into this market now? What is their concern? Obviously job postings generally, but are there skill sets they're concerned about? Are there certain traits that they need to be working on before they go into the market right now? Seems like now's a good time to be working on something before the jobs come back, because we know they will come back. But what are you seeing in that space?
We actually reached out to our students just to see how COVID had impacted them. A lot of them are concerned with their parents' job loss and navigating that, returning to school, finishing up. And even though we're promoting jobs, we also see that they're nervous about how to recruit virtually. How do you attend and show up and be a strong candidate at a virtual career fair? So building those skills. And then I would also, and I have a couple of colleagues, I have Caitlin, Cynthia, IL, they can definitely chime in. But we also see that they're very concerned. They have a lot of anxiety about the job search process. We are advising them to look at certifications. If graduate school was already on the horizon, think about applying and pursuing their degree, because like you mentioned, the jobs will come back. And we know this, well, what they're telling us, this may last 18 months or so. You could probably almost be finished with a master's degree or pretty close to finishing a master's degree by the time that this comes back, and maybe incorporate some internships. So that's some of the concern that I'm seeing. I also have been trying to educate students on thinking about teaching, because that is an area that is continuing to hire, and they're looking for those transferable skills that most employers are looking for. And I'll be happy to see if any of my colleagues online would like to also speak to that.
You mentioned you had Caitlin, and who else was
Caitlin.
on? Okay, Caitlin, I see you have a great backdrop on your screen there, by the way. Well done.
Thank
would
you.
Would you like to chime in on what you're seeing in the space as well with students looking for jobs?
Yeah, thank you so much. So my name is Caitlin Dyson. I serve as the Assistant Director for Employer Development and Relations on Monica's team. And so really my role is to connect with employers and provide them opportunities to engage with our students. So anything from internships all the way to full-time jobs. So we are definitely seeing, as Keith mentioned, he is definitely getting a little bit more of those jobs. I think he mentioned he was about 50 to 60% back to capacity. We're seeing that as well too. So within Kruger Pathway, our job platform, we're seeing a lot more employers posting positions now for interns, and then also full-time positions as well. And so really we're just connecting with employers and trying to find them opportunities. So if any of the alum that are on here are looking for those, you can reach out to our Alumni Career Services team. I see that someone posted our web link in the chat, so thank you for doing that. And so you can go directly on there to find all that information that Monica shared as well.
Thank you so much, Caitlin, and welcome. Welcome to the webinar. We appreciate you. Keith, I'm going to throw one back to you. You guys probably wake up in the morning and say, okay, what is the market like? I'm not going to let you be bad news guy, but I'm going to let you be half full guy. what do you think the timing is on the recovery, or what are you all seeing in the marketplace that is, are we talking 6, 12, 18 months? What is your sense at Murray Resources of where we are, not only as a city, but as a country? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think it's tough to predict how long it's going to last because we don't know about, second wave, third wave, or however many waves there may be. But I think it's pretty safe to say there's not going to be a whole lot of change between now and the end of the year. And that's how far we're planning, right? So we were talking to clients and they're telling us, we're having a hiring freeze and through the end of the year. So what we're telling our own team is a lot of the oil and gas companies, when things are great, 80% of our business may be oil and gas. When oil and gas is like it is now, it might be 20, 30%. And so for us as a company, we're trying to have to plan around that. And who are we going after? So it's the essential services, that's where we're starting. So it's pharmaceuticals, it's manufacturing companies that have to stay open, it's grocery stores, it's some of the gig workers, technology. I mean, there's some technology firms that have almost no idea this is going on because they've always been remote. They have a ton of investment. They're looking for people, and it's just, this really isn't affecting them, right? So, I mean, you can look at the stock market and see the types of stock that are going up in this environment. I mean, there's plenty of stocks doing great. So that's what we're trying to focus on. But we're not sitting back and waiting for oil and gas to come back, or some of the ones that, some of the traditional employers. Now, the one caveat I would say on that is I like to zig when others are zagging. And if no one's going in oil and gas and no one wants to go into Chevron or Exxon or those companies, and that's a great time to get in because you're going to have less competition at some point, and all those companies are going to need people. So it only takes one. You don't have to you're not getting 100 jobs. You just need one job. And so all you have to do is find that one job and get in one time, and you're going to have less competition in some of those areas. So.
Keith, as a quick follow-up, are you seeing, is the number of postings or the number of opportunities rising kind of consistently, or is it kind of spiking back and forth?
It was rising consistently each week since that early April until about 2 weeks ago, and it's just plateaued. So 50 to 60%. It hasn't gone beyond that. I don't know if it will between now and the end of the year, but that's kind of where we are right now.
Morgan, I'm going to come over to you into your camp for a second. So you're a younger alum. You know a lot of young alums who are dealing with this right now. What is what's kind of the atmosphere around young people right now that are looking for jobs, not only that you have as friends and colleagues, but as a recruiter when you're trying to get people involved? What are you seeing that maybe they do well, and what are you seeing that maybe they ought to focus a little bit more on in this atmosphere?
I think with this generation, obviously they're very in tune with technology. So I'd say that on the positive side, there's really no lack of knowing what resources to utilize in terms of platforms, LinkedIn, social media. I think that young alum are very in tune with that. Things that I think that they maybe aren't thinking about would be, still keeping that personal touch. I know that this is a, strange time to be in the recruiting space. Most people are used to having an in-person interview. It might start off, heavy on the technology side in terms of, maybe a video of yourself, a resume video, or just a simple phone call with a prospective employer. I would say, still, find ways to stay in, tune with your personal side, whether that be with your resume and, really personalizing that, getting, yourself through on those applications somehow, and making sure that your resume really shines. So, this time is great, for people that are very in tune with technology and just being comfortable with that. But I think that, I think Monica had mentioned this earlier, you've got to find a way to stand out. And I think that's what people probably really need to focus on right now.
I guess I could ask this to any one of the three of you want to take it, but it might be aimed at Keith. Are there specific skill sets that seem to be getting hired a little bit more often than others right now? Keith, is there a space that people are drifting to?
I can't point to one skill set, but I would say because the folks who we're seeing hired are being hired for something very specific, and every company is different in what they might be looking for. So there might be a very specific engineer at one company, it might be a very specific salesperson with 10 years of experience. But I think what I would do during this time is try to get as many technical skills under my belt as I can. Because the problem with resumes is the soft skills do not translate, right? You can only say teamwork, team player, and all that stuff so many times. It really doesn't mean anything. It's just puffery. Everyone writes it, and how do you know it's true? But those technical skills can really differentiate you. And the good news is a lot of the companies, like Salesforce is one. If you know Salesforce well, you're typically going to be able to find a job. I mean, there are companies who will hire that skill. And you can go on Salesforce and you can take their classes. And most of these technology companies make their courses free because they want people to adopt them. So you can go to Google and take their SEO classes, their AdWords classes. You can do all that stuff for free. And I would be doing as much of that as I could. So if marketing were my thing, I would try to take as many SEO courses as I could. Sales, I would take as many sales courses as I could, and I would put that on my resume. The other thing that I would do is I would go up the chain as high as I could. So the person at the highest point in the organization has the biggest need and the most pain. You might be surprised by reaching out to the CEO, and it might seem intimidating to do, but if there's a hiring need, that person is going to feel the pain more than anybody else. And they're not used to being reached out to. You might think that they are, but they're not, because most people are too intimidated. Go as high as you can and reach for that person. And you might be surprised. You might get a response from the CEO before you get a response for an HR person who's inundated with thousands of resumes, right? So that's just a tip.
Wow, I love that. I hope somebody wrote that down. Go to the CEO. And as you can see in the chat, our friend Kirsten Spike from our team is putting these little tidbits into your chat. Also, she's scouring that for your questions. So be sure and ask your questions as we go along, because I have some stock questions here, but I don't want you all to leave here without asking you maybe your own scenario. What is your scenario, and what might you be looking for? So let me ask this one of Morgan, really quick. So what is kind of the mental trajectory of a graduate the first 5 years out? Like, what is their patience level right now? And are they willing to do, you know what I mean? Your own patience level. I'm hitting you at the 5-year point,
Mm-hmm.
And our younger folks that are just graduating, or recent graduates in the last 10 years, having to slow down their timetable a little bit. Are you seeing that, where they just have to be a little more patient than jump?
Definitely. And I can speak to that personally. I obviously didn't enter the market at this time. But I think that, people do need to be prepared to be a little bit more patient. If you don't get a job, in June, it might look more like August or September, and that's okay. I think that people generally would fear having, maybe some gaps in their resume in terms of, from when you graduated to when you, got your first position. And I think that any employer at this point in time would be understanding of, that grind is going to exist, and that there's going to be some lag, between, when you're able to obtain your first position. So I think that, it's more, that you put your, get some patience, and, just understand that this is going to maybe require a little bit more effort, than it would normally.
Excellent. Angel, I almost said the wrong name there. Angel has a question back to Keith as a follow-up. Besides Salesforce, do you have any other software on high demand that folks ought to maybe get trained in while they have the chance?
Google, Facebook, Shopify. I mean, my background's marketing, so I'm going to throw out all the what's hot in marketing.
Right.
But go to, folks whose jobs that you would like to do one day, look at their LinkedIn profiles, see what technology they have listed on theirs, see what certifications they have on theirs, and model yours after theirs. Look at a job that you're interested in, look at the job description and see what's required. In most of these, I can just, Marketo, Aloka, MailChimp, there's hundreds, Drift, just hundreds. So like I said, most of them have free courses on their websites.
Wow, that's great. I'm going to go to Monica and Caitlin, or the career services team. How about that? And what about watering your network right about now? generally you have time to, networking is about, how you're going to get your next job is likely going to come from somebody you already know. How are we coaching people up, and how can you help people to, I call it watering your network, to just be in touch with others that might hear something for you if you have downtime? Speak to what you guys are coaching folks up to do now in that period.
Okay, I'll start, and Caitlin, you can chime in, or Cynthia, whoever's here from alumni. I would say first thing, if you haven't, get on LinkedIn. Get on LinkedIn, get connected with the Alumni Association. They have a LinkedIn group, and you start to follow, companies. And if you can, start to really build a strong online presence, a professional picture. Your LinkedIn profile doesn't have to look exactly like your resume. You can talk more about your accomplishments, and you start to connect with people, connect with groups. Even on Twitter, started to follow employers. A lot of employers will post their jobs. I know Keith just talked about a lot of marketing, but social media and marketing and communication is really big, and they're still hiring. So if you can get in that arena, and even if you're just starting off with 23 connections, just start building your network. Think about your class friends, your professors, us that are here now. And I just want to do a quick plug for Kruger Pathway. We have over 300 jobs, and we are seeing fewer experienced hires and our alumni applying for those jobs. So definitely get connected with us so that you can apply for those jobs. Kaylin, is there anything you want to add? Or
Yeah, just one small thing that I think is really important that our career counselors talk about is informational interviews. So yes, I think having a LinkedIn is great, but how do you actually have those conversations, and how do you engage with people? So I would recommend, if you find someone that's in a job you think is really cool or really interesting or something you would like to do, reach out to them. If they're an alum, this is even better, because you can say, hey, fellow Coug, you are in a role that I think is really cool. I'd love to pick your brain on a few things, or could I ask for some advice on, transitioning into this industry? I don't know that many people are going to say, no, I don't have the time for you. They may say, hey, I don't have the time right now, but maybe a little bit later. Maybe you can ask to schedule something. But I'm a big fan of informational interviews and going directly to the source and asking for that advice.
And I would also add to that LinkedIn informational interviews, because if you're trying to figure out what to say, informational interview is a great cover for that. But then beyond that, with our counselors or even industry professionals, do a mock interview, do a practice interview, so that you can really perfect your interviewing skills. Interviews are hard to come by. There are no do-overs, so you want to make that strong professional impression. So I would say a practice interview as well.
I'll throw out there right now, I gave a conversation to a young man that I'm pseudo mentoring yesterday. And that is, you have the opportunity to do some charity or volunteer work right now too. There's so much going on in the community, and you might be standing right next to somebody who knows about a job that's about to happen. How important is that? I love how emphatically Caitlin is shaking her head, so I'll let her chime in. But how important is that to someone's resume in this period of time, that when it's over, an employer can see that you took the time when time was tough to help somebody else? And how will that help you down the line?
Yeah, I think that's really important. I think kind of depending on how comfortable and safe you feel, if you are comfortable to get out into the community and provide, that type of community service. I would also look at if you have any hobbies or if you're involved in any groups. I had a student that I had worked with that was really into motocross and didn't think to tap into that community at all, and just happened to mention, I'm looking for an internship. And one of the people that was in the motocross was like, I'm a CEO of a company. And they were able to provide them that opportunity. But I think sometimes we're a little afraid to ask for those things, or it feels a little uncomfortable. But I would recommend just putting yourself out there and asking your network. But definitely that outreach and engaging in that way. And Dr. Thompson, I think you have some other stuff that you could add as well.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. I was just noticing that we also have another team member, Jamie, is on here, and she's given an example of building a strong LinkedIn profile. But learning the professional's experience in their journey and how they got started is a first great question to ask when you're connecting with others.
Perfect. Quick reminder that you all can ask your questions in the chat. A good thing I have a long list of them, apparently. But make sure you get those questions in. We have a few minutes left. I'll ask this one of both Morgan and Keith, whoever wants to go first. Have companies changed their hiring processes recently? I mean, what of those, are they looking for different things? Have they changed the way that they are filling positions, or has it been pretty much the same? Morgan, you want to maybe go first?
Yeah, I can speak to that. So I think that one thing that you're really going to see a lot more of, number one would be, telework. So, a lot of positions won't be reporting to a physical office space anymore, depending on the type of employer and the industry they're in, which for, young alum and, more of my generation, that's like a slam dunk. We love that. Another thing that you will probably be seeing a lot more of would be what we call flex schedules. So not that standard 8 to 5 schedule. There's going to be a lot more flexibility in that regard. So that's kind of more on the once you're hired side of recruiting. But, in the actual recruiting process itself, I think that you are going to see a lot more of these, Zoom style interviews. A lot of companies are not, having any really extra visitors in their buildings, especially right now. That's just not happening. So I think that, definitely be prepared, for more of a Zoom style, teleconference interview. And try to, keep yourself in front of these prospective employers, and, any way you can. Send those follow-up emails, even call, do whatever you can, to really keep yourself, prominent, and don't, fall into the sea of, millions of job, applications, because it's really all virtual now. So I think that would be really important.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Keith, do you want to jump on that? Or I think I have some of our attendees have taken pity on me where I'm asking all the questions, and we actually have a couple now. So I appreciate that.
More the same. I mean, just give you an idea. We're only doing virtual interviews. So for our clients, I'm in the office, but we're not allowing candidates in. We're not allowing our clients in. So we're 100% doing virtual. We're doing hundreds of Zoom interviews a week. And I would say, if you're on the more introverted side, I feel like now is your time to shine. Right, because it's been proven that extroverts have an advantage in the interview process. They just typically are more comfortable with it. But if you're on the more introverted side, you get a camera and you set yourself up, and you need to practice. It's a skill like anything else. I would not do it for the first time when it's live. Practice with a friend, get good at it, make sure that you're dressed well and the background's right and the lighting is right before you go live. But it's an advantage for some folks who are really good at it.
Can I chime in?
Yeah, you may.
And I can
please.
take one of these questions too.
I like chiming in.
So what I want to say is that's the very thing that our office would help. We will do that practice interview. We'll set up the virtual mock interviews. We'll even have some employers. You need that practice. Y'all know what I said about there are no more do-overs. So you definitely need that practice. Someone wanted to know if they're getting to the end of the interview process, dead end, and they're hearing the line competition. It is competitive out there, but I would say when we're hearing from students, they seem more concerned, just anxiety and job search in general. So I do feel like there's some students that are not really acting on the job search process and actually applying. But if you're getting to that point, I would also say I really recommend doing a mock interview so that you can meet with someone from our team or even an industry professional and go through what are some of those questions, jot down those questions, because I like to think after this, I've done well, right? But really, someone's watching me now. It's like, man, she could have done this better. She could have done that better. And that's what will happen in a mock interview. They'll be able to give you feedback if it's nonverbal, if it's any twitching, if it's like, you said some great things, but you didn't answer the question. And people need to know how to articulate their skills, their past experience, so that employer can build a match. Keith said you just can't say I have the certification. You're going to have to describe a project. And so in a mock interview, we can break it down and we can help you. We can pull the job description and we can kind of pull out maybe questions that are asked, or more specifically have an interview with an industry professional, because there may be something that you're missing or you're not getting hitting on all cylinders. And I would also say network. When you see a job opportunity, Keith said go all the way to the top, go home or go big, right? Well, go all the way to the top and start to network. And I would say network with more than one person. When I interviewed for this job, I let 4 people know that I was interviewing for this job. Okay, I'm pretty sure Dr. Maxwell got a few email messages about it. It worked out, it worked out. But I would just say network with those people to see who you know within the company and see what their interview process was like, because every company is different and you want to know what did they ask you? What are they looking for? And you want to hone in on that. And so if you do meet with someone from my team or industry professional, you can bring those notes and we can incorporate it and we'll see how you've done and give you the feedback.
Excellent.
Mhm.
Caitlin, were you going to add something to that? No, don't let me surprise you. Okay, good. So we have another question from Veronica, which is a really good question. Maybe I'll fire this one to Keith with Morgan following up. Are companies that didn't offer remote or at-home positions before COVID considering them now? And her follow-up question is really maybe about the awkwardness of, do you discuss that as an option during the negotiating process? Are you seeing a little more of that, Keith, in that
Yeah,
space?
I mean, the easy answer is yes. A lot more companies are offering remote. That's a fact. But I always wait or I advise waiting until you receive an offer or getting close to an offer. There's no point in screening yourself out for other reasons, whether it's talking about salary or benefits. I mean, I coach people to wait as long as they can before sticking to anything, because you just don't want to give someone a reason to screen you out. If it's okay, let me just touch on, not getting feedback in the process, because this is so common. And I'm just giving you the other side of the coin. I'm not saying it's right, but this is just the reality of what happens. Recruiters and HR folks, there's no upside for them to give you feedback, right? Because all it takes is one person who you give honest feedback to gets offended by it. And that's the last time that HR person ever gives anybody feedback, right? And everybody knows what I'm talking about. So if you really are open to it, because if you're really that person who's open to it, I would say, listen, I'm trying to improve. I just want to get better. I can take whatever advice you give me. I would just love to honestly know what I could have done better. If you say that, you're much more likely to get feedback. But otherwise, they're just going to give you the standard response. And because there's really no upside to not doing that.
You may have to say that twice, right, Keith? You might have to convince them the second, no, really, I really do want the feedback. Please take them, because they're still a little gun shy. I mean, yeah, I've been in that space as well. So it's an interesting space.
I have another thing to chime in on that particular note. Yes.
Please do.
So real life experience. I felt like I was a confident candidate, but I just wanted to know, I asked this one recruiter, I was like, we've spent some time together, and this type of thing that we can help with the dialogue. And I've gotten a chance to share my experience, and I learned a lot about the position. And I really like to know if there are any concerns about my skill set and my experience. And it's the same as like, or do you have any concerns about me as far as moving to the next step? And that recruiter actually did say, you're right. I really did enjoy, she gave me everything back. I really did enjoy talking with you, but I'm really looking for more experience here. So I was able to get some feedback. And again, you can practice this. You got to be ready for it as well, but you want it to come off very smoothly and not in a defensive way, but you really want to see if they're building that same match that you think that you have in your head for that company. And I was able to get some real applicable feedback related to my experience, and it didn't feel so personal.
Excellent. So we have two questions from JDs. I don't know what the J stands for, so I don't want to get that wrong. One is, how do you cover any gaps in your resume due to employment? And then the second one is, he or she gets a lot of looks from companies on LinkedIn, but no follow-up. Is there a dynamic hook I can put in my profile that might promote that? Oh, John. Thank you, John. I appreciate it. I didn't know whether it was male or female. So does anybody want to take a shot at that one? About something you might put in your LinkedIn file that might make it stand out a little bit more? Or
I can take that.
Okay, great.
Yeah, so you can, I would recommend, if you're actively looking for employment and you're on LinkedIn, to put seeking or looking for in your little bio. And that way a company will actually know that you're looking. I'm a very active individual on LinkedIn, but I'm not looking, currently looking for a job. So, I'm on there all the time, and yeah, I get those notifications that so-and-so, from XYZ company looked at your profile. And then you can always reach out to them as well. Go to their page and see if they are, hiring, if they have any open positions. a lot of companies have gotten very active on LinkedIn. So you can usually find out pretty easily if that company is hiring, and you can always, find that recruiter person for the company and send them a message on LinkedIn. It's a pretty informal, way of communication, and there's, nothing at all wrong with just sending a message and saying, I stumbled upon your company, or I saw a position that you have posted. I'm interested in that position. Can you tell me more about that?
That's a great answer. I actually, about 7, 8 years ago, when LinkedIn was just getting started, maybe it was a little longer than that, we were approached to be a part of the beta for LinkedIn to auto-populate a page for the University of Houston alumni, which you can find if you search for University of Houston on LinkedIn and click on the result that has the school next to it. And then if you scroll down the page, it'll say alumni. That page has over 210,000 University of Houston alumni on one page. And you can break them up by category, by company, by region of the country that they work in. And you might take an opportunity. And I think Kirsten put it in the link in the chat here earlier on. But that is a crazy resource that's so great for alumni, because if you put University of Houston in your profile, you are auto-populated to that page. And those of us who use LinkedIn know that you have to connect each other. Well, this is a way that you can look up everybody that works for Disney in Los Angeles is on that page. That's an alum. Everybody that works for HP in Dallas, that's an alum, is on that page, at least if they put it in their profile. So there are some really good resources out there in the LinkedIn space. Monica, you were on mute, but you did have a question there quickly about an alum farther than 3 years out utilizing alumni services, or maybe Caitlin, about how they can utilize those services. Any alum, regardless of how far out you are. But
Yes, I saw that. And I saw one of my team members. It could have been Cynthia. She's actually joined us. It says UCS team member, but they can actually subscribe 6 months out. It is $50. Someone asked about that, and do we waive? We have waived. They can just contact Alumni Career Services. The two people would be Cynthia and Io. But yeah, we have alumni out from a year to 20 years, 30 or 40 years out. So we have a mix.
Outstanding. So we have just a couple more minutes to go. If you have a question you'd like to ask, I was searching for that webpage and I took my questions down. Let me ask this question really quick. Let's see. How about culture? So right now, the culture of Houston has been oil and gas forever, right? I mean, it's just oil and gas, oil and gas. Keith, do you see that shifting at all? I mean, I know technology has come in, but talk maybe a little bit, and I don't want to get you out of your lane, but maybe about medical space, some other things that are happening in Houston, that it's not just an oil and gas town, and where some other opportunities might be coming, when things return.
Yeah, I mean, it's diversified a lot. I mean, I would say, if I was going to look at two things, I'd probably say manufacturing and technology, outside of the obvious healthcare and oil and gas. I just feel like if you're not comfortable with technology right now in any line of work, I mean, you're going to fall behind, so, hopefully I'm answering your question a little bit, but just to take a little bit of a tangent back to kind of, you were mentioning that you have a mentor, or that you're a mentor to somebody. Consider being a reverse mentor to somebody who maybe you want to work with, or somebody in position. Let's say, there's a VP of marketing. I mean, folks like myself, we're starting to get concerned. We're getting gray hair. We're starting to get concerned that we may fall behind technology at some point. I want to know what 18-year-olds are using, what 20-year-olds, what technologies are upcoming. What's the next TikTok? I have no, my kids are 1, 5, and 7. They're too young for that. But I want to tie into what are the new technologies coming. If somebody came to me and said, Keith, I want to be a reverse mentor. I want you to help me, but I'm also going to help you. I want to teach you about these technologies. I would take that on in a heartbeat. But no one does that. Like, no one does that because they're intimidated that they can't teach anybody 15, 20 years into their career, but we're all still trying to learn. So I would offer that up. Try to offer value to someone that you would want to mentor you. And if I could just offer one more tip, just because I know if that's okay.
Yeah.
If you want to find folks who are hiring, go to LinkedIn, punch in quotes, we're hiring. Okay. Just punch it into quotes, we're hiring, and it'll pull up all the people who have we're hiring in their own profiles. So you'd be amazed how many CEOs or HR professionals or managers in their own profile say, XYZ company, we're hiring. And I mean, you can go through and then filter by Houston, and you'll get 20, 30, 40 more companies that are doing that. If you're open to different markets, you'll get more than that. So that's another way to kind of look for those companies that are hiring. You'll see a lot of technology companies that are doing that.
In that same, here's a question. Where can we find opportunities in the global realm and require traveling? Who wants to say? Anyone want to take a shot at that one? Or think about that one for a second. We see it in the chat. Well, I'm going to tangent on to Keith's comment about mentoring and menteeing and reverse mentoring. What about right now taking the opportunity to do an internship or a training program that may or may not pay you the total salary that you're looking for, but might get you in the door? I had a side question on a text about that question. Is that a good idea to just get yourself in, especially if you're at the starter end, that you will take an internship just to get yourself going and learn a new skill? Monica, Caitlin, Morgan, anybody want to take a run at that one?
Sure. I'd say it's always a great time to learn a new skill. During this time, there's a lot of opportunities out there that will keep you busy with that. Offered online, obviously, and sometimes they're free or relatively inexpensive. Anyone else want to chime in?
Yeah, I'll chime in on that. I do think it's a good time to maybe, take an internship and take more of a learning opportunity. That you have no idea where that opportunity, really could lead you. So I think it's a great time to do that and to be just more flexible. Honestly, and maybe not get stuck in the, that track that you thought that you had for yourself. I think that you need to, like we said earlier, be patient. And I think the other thing would be to be flexible and be more open to what other opportunities might be out there for you.
Yeah. We have some employers that are interested in doing micro internships. So some of our virtual small projects, and we're offering that. I know Caitlin, she led our efforts as far as changing our policy. We wouldn't allow virtual opportunities before, but in this environment we are, so we have to kind of write some guidelines. So we also want to mentor employers and teach them, like, don't think about not having an opportunity. Here's a way that you can have that opportunity, even if you have a budget issue. And maybe it's a smaller project. And so maybe even as a graduate, you graduate, you think, do I have to do an internship? You still can do the internship. You still can help that company. You still can contribute. Remember, you're going to have something to put on your resume. And then think about transferable skills. There may be other places that you can work that's not related to your major. I know we just spent a lot of money and years, but the thing is, you want to stay employed, be employed, and continue the network and meet with other people. You may be a history major, but you're great with technology and social media. So start to think about your interests, your values, and where you have some other talents that may be popping up that may not be your initial, dream job.
Monica, we had a couple quick questions about the definition of a micro internship. Can you fire off what that might be?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. So those are going to be like those short internships. And so it could be over a semester. It could be over a winter break. It could even be a spring break. I don't know, Caitlin, if you want to say anything related to that.
Yeah, so they can be anything from, like what Monica said, it could even be a small project. So it could be 2 to 4 weeks of a project. And so one thing I wanted to recommend is there's also some websites called Upwork or different things like that where you can do project-based assignments that would allow you to potentially fill in some of those gaps. So if you do have those marketing skills or social media skills and you want to maybe get paid a little bit for that, those would be really great resources for that. Micro internships, we do have some information on our website that's been shared regarding those micro internships. There are some websites that completely just, that's all they do. So if you want to look for any of those, we do not have any posted in Kruger Pathway at this time, but it is one of our summer things that we are working on. And it's really just more connecting with employers that are looking for somebody to maybe revamp a manual, maybe to provide a little bit of social media feedback, like, oh, here's some areas that you could expand on a little bit further, or website development. So if you want to think of it more as maybe technical projects, that's more what they are.
And let me just show you in the chat right now, John D's put an opportunity in there that it automatically just expanded your network because of this webinar. So I feel I got chills just thinking about how important this webinar just was, that if you have an interest in those jobs at Apple, John, thank you so much for that. You can see it's apple.com jobs, and then he has his email address on there. I will tell all of you here just to write that down, because when we're done, this will go away and you'll have to wait for it to be downloaded and then go on the website. And I'm not sure, Kendra, if the chat ends up in the recording or not. I think it does. No, it does not. So you want to write some of that stuff down. We do copy some other stuff, but I don't want that in the public realm. That's like a bonus for you all being here. So write that particular piece down. And thank you, John. That's very kind. So we're at the end of our time. We have about 4 minutes left, and we have 3 or 4 of you. So I would ask, maybe I'm walking out the door and I'm getting ready to go interview, and you're going to get one shot to give me one piece of advice that will help me feel better about the opportunity and what I need to pay attention to when I go to get that next job. So I'm going to start with Morgan, and then Keith, and then Monica will get to wrap us up. What would you say would be the one piece of advice you'd give to someone in this market right now that would make them feel better about their chances and help them be confident in the next interview?
Yeah, and I think I maybe spoke on this earlier, but, do whatever you can, to differentiate yourself. If you find yourself, in a face-to-face interview, or it might just be, a virtual interview, send those follow-ups, do it. I can't tell you how many interviews I've had over the past few years where I never heard from the candidate again. And however serious they may have told me they were, during the interview, and how much they wanted the job and how interested they were, I can't tell you how much it speaks, to me as a recruiter, not to be reached out to after the fact. Even if you don't have a question, just send an email, and tell, thank them for their time, especially right now. If somebody's willing to put themselves out there, to be face to face with you, and, with everything that's going on, I think that's very important. So I would say, just, it's stiff competition, and just do what you really ultimately can do to make yourself stand out, and just keep those personal touches there if you can.
Excellent. Thank you. Keith, your final word to somebody walking out the door who needs a pat on the back?
No, that's great advice. In fact, we just put out a recruiting survey to our clients and prospects who are hiring, and asked them for tips that they would give folks who are going through a recruiting process. And the number one turnoff of anything, you could be dressed wrong, you could show up late, you can mumble, you can do everything. But the number one turnoff is to not show enthusiasm for the job. So, and we see that a lot. You'd be amazed at how many people show up for a job interview and seem like they don't even want to be there, which of course they do, because they wouldn't have been taking the time, but they probably believe that, of course I want this job, otherwise I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you. But the interviewer doesn't think that way, right? They know that you may have other choices and other things that you're interested in. You must show enthusiasm for that job, and you must be confident. And the best way to be confident, I've found, is just be overly prepared. Just be prepared. Know the job, know who you're interviewing with, know the company, ask good questions. That will put you far and beyond 75%. I'm making up the number, whatever percentage it is. Most people do not do that preparation. They don't ask good questions. If you do the preparation, you will be more confident. You'll be able to show enthusiasm.
Thank you so much. Monica, you have the last word.
I have the last words.
Before I say goodbye.
Before you say goodbye. Okay, let me make it quick. First of all, stay positive. Think about your well-being. We're doing workshops on job search and anxiety, so look that up on our website. I say it's kind of like working out. You need to do something every day to make some progress. So that means looking for a job, typing in, we're hiring in LinkedIn, like Keith said. I like to try to be organized. Create a spreadsheet of your efforts so you know when to follow up. And don't forget, your network is your parents, your girlfriend, boyfriend's parents, your neighbors, church members, and let people know that you're applying for jobs and what you're looking for. You'll be surprised of how people are willing to help. But if you just start to articulate, I'm looking to do this next. I'm like, do you know anyone? Do you have any contacts? And don't be afraid to ask for help.
Well, thank you so much, Monica, and of course, Caitlin from your team who joined us, and Morgan and Keith. Your time is invaluable to us, and we really do appreciate you taking the moment to join us. It's been a great hour. We've got some great conversation here that we're going to save on our website and we'll push out. But I know all of you are also, reachable through our website. We'll put some information there on how you can reach Murray Resources, how you can reach HR&P, how you can reach UCS. And it's all very important that we all, as one big family at the end of the day, remember 1 out of every 6 college graduates in the city of Houston is a Cougar. Don't be afraid to say that you're a University of Houston alum when you go in that meeting too, because you have no idea who you might be sitting next to. And that's really, really important. So thank you all so much for joining us today. Thanks for my team for monitoring the chat and keeping me on track. And thanks to all of you for participating today. On behalf of everybody at the University of Houston and the University of Houston Alumni Association, we wish you all the best in your future careers and what might be coming down your way. And thank you for joining us today. In the end of all that, we always say, go Cougs.
Go Cougs. Thank you. Thank you to my team.
You.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Have a great day.